Hey everyone, my name is Rich and I'm from Studio Bow, and today we're going to make a health bar in Rive, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do all the steps, and hopefully it'll be under 30 minutes. So let's jump in. So first off, let me show you what we're doing. So we're going to make a health bar that looks like this, just a simple health bar with a background, and if you click anywhere on the screen, the health bar will decrease, and until you're left with 0 and you die, and you can restart, and you can keep doing this. So this should hopefully teach you a little bit about Rive's interactivity and state machines and how you can make something for your game, for your website, for fun. You can even input this on an app if you so desire. So let's jump in and get this done. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new file. Let's keep it at 500 by 500, which is the default. I'm going to rename my project health bar. We can also rename the artboard health bar. You rename it by simply just double clicking on the text. The first thing I want to do is make sure I'm in design mode up here. You can hit tab to go between design mode and animate mode. And what I want to do now is create a heart. And so to do that, I'm going to make 2 circles. I'm going to hit Control or Apple D to duplicate that circle and just drag it over a little bit. I'm holding down Control and scrolling in on my mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm then going to create the pen tool and just kind of eyeball kind of a diamond shape here, make that a nice heart shape, and I'll go zoom in and just make sure that it looks pretty good. All right, we've done our heart. I quite like that. I want to just make this corner here a little bit rounded. So to do that, I'm going to just select this custom shape that I've made with the pen tool. I'm going to hit enter or click on this path. Both will take you there. And then you should have a little edit vertices tab on the right. You can click that. And if we select this vertice now, just this vertice, we'll have a little corner widget. And if we make that, for instance, 20, and click done editing, we now have a nice heart with a rounded corner. But I want to make sure these shapes all stay together. So I'm going to group it by hitting Control G. And that should group everything now nicely for me. And I want to rename this group Heart. Not Herat, Heart. Next, I want to change the color. And to change all of these shape colors at once, if I select with the group selected, I should have a selected colors here. And because they're all one color, it shows me. So I'm going to quickly just go and choose kind of a red color. I'm going to pull this off to the side and holding down shift to just snap it in place. I'm going to just resize it a little bit. Next, we're going to make the bar of the health bar. So I want to take a rectangle and I want to just make it kind of my desired width and height and put that in the middle. I just want to make sure that this health bar is underneath the heart. So you can see that it kind of, we have a health bar here that's going to be slowly decreasing. I'm going to use the corner widget on this rectangle to also just give some rounded corners to this, so everything has got some nice curves. And I'm going to rename this health bar background, just so that we're going to have a background and we're going to have a fill. And so I want to change this background color to black. So I'm going to select the background, go to fill and strokes and just make that black. Next, I want to select the health bar again and hit Control D to duplicate. You can also duplicate stuff by right clicking. You can't, but you can copy and paste, I'm pretty sure. And we're going to rename this health bar fill. And for this, I want to make this color kind of a light pink. Or light red pink color. Cool, that's all set up. Next thing I want to do is create some text. And so I want to say you died. And let's just make sure this is in the middle by hitting this this little snap to middle button. I also like to just change the properties to align to center, align to middle. And then because the origin is set to 0, 0, which is the top left corner, I kind of like to make my text 50-50 so that it's the origin or the anchor point's always in the middle. Next, I just want to make it a bit bigger, and I'm happy with kind of that. Maybe I like to change the font to Josephine Sands. It's a nice font. And lastly, what I'm going to do is now just change this to you died text. I'm going to duplicate this you died text, pull it down below here, double click in it, and just say restart. Maybe we'll make that uppercase too. Cool, and now I'll make this a little bit smaller so it's not as prominent. And we are pretty much done with all of our design now. Let's just rename this restart text. And there is one more step in the design phase that I think I'm going to take you back to because it's not going to make much sense now. So we'll be coming back here in a little bit. But for now, let's jump over to animate mode. Animate mode is you can hit tab to get there. You can click this button up here. And all you need to do now is have a look at the interface. If you're new to Arrive, this animate mode might be a little bit unfamiliar to you. And so we're going to go down to the bottom left. We have a state machine and a timeline. And we're going to be making multiple timelines and then dragging them into our state machine here and adding logic so that we can make this health bar kind of decrease. But the first thing we're going to do is make this heart pulse every time the health bar decreases. So let's change this timeline 1 to heart pulse. And what we're going to do next is it defaults to 1 second. The duration of the timeline is 1 second. That's a little bit too long for us. So what I want to do is drop this down to simply 30 frames. So we'll hit a 0 there and then 30. So essentially it's about half a second long. Next, I want to take this heart group, I want to select it, and you might have a different scale here depending on how you made your heart and how you resized it. It doesn't really matter. We can just kind of visually tell how you've scaled it down or up. But the first thing we want to do is just make sure we have 2 keyframes, one for the X, one for the Y. And once we push these keyframe buttons over here, it should now pop up in our timeline that we have a heart with a keyframe. If we toggle this down, we'll see X and Y both have a keyframe. I tend to like to lock this, keep it linked so that it always remains the same. And if you're happy with how yours is looking, what we're going to do now is go to the 15 frame mark, which is the halfway mark. And I want to put this down to maybe 50%. So you can see it's kind of scaling down now. And you can do this by eye, whatever feels right to you. You don't have to keep it at 72 or 50%. And then simply drag your playhead to the end of the timeline, and you can select your first 2 keyframes, hit copy and paste. If you haven't scrolled down, it will just be 1 keyframe. It kind of consolidates it all to 1 keyframe. And now, if you've done that correctly, you should have a little heart pulse. If you select this layer heart, it will default to linear keyframes. I quite like more snappier keyframes, so I'm going to hit this cubic interpolation here. With all my keyframes selected, just hit cubic, and this is going to give you some handles, and you can see here now my heart is slightly more punchier. If you want it even more punchier, you can pull these Bezier handles left and right, and that will make things super punchy. Boom. All right. If we are happy with that, we can make a new timeline. And to do that, we're going to go to our little animation tab here and click the plus sign for a new timeline. And here we're going to build out some values for this health bar decreasing. So ultimately what we want to do is we want to make this health bar go down until it hits 0. But as you can see, it's not really looking good at the moment. It's appearing on the left hand side here. So I want to just if you're in this timeline already, you can just delete that keyframe. We want to start this timer with nothing in this keyframe. So if you got stuff here, just delete it. And we're going to rename this health bar 100, basically full health. But before I do that, we're going to jump back to our design mode, just to make sure we don't create any unnecessary keyframes by accident. And I want to make sure that this health bar doesn't appear to the left of the bar. And so to do that, I'm going to select the health bar. There's a little setting over here called clip with a plus sign. And if you click that, we're going to make a clipping mask of the background bar. So now that background bar is kind of like a mask of the top bar. And so now if we select the top bar and pull this down, you can see that it only appears where the mask is. And so that is how we're going to make this kind of disappear behind the heart. So let me just repeat that step, because sometimes it can be quite confusing. If you know how to do it, just hit fast forward by 30 seconds. So I'm just going to delete that here. What we want to do is make a clipping mask of this background for the fill. And so we're going to select the fill. We're going to go to our clip. We're going to hit plus on the clip. We're going to select our background as the clipping mask. And that'll do it. And now this should be able to go down all the way behind the heart. Okay, let's go back into animate mode. We can now select our fill, and simply we're going to be changing just this X value of the position. And so we can hit just this little keyframe icon here to make a keyframe, and that's it. That's all we want to do, because we're going to do the rest of the animation in other timelines. Well, it's not even animation, we're just going to put some properties into other timelines. And to do that, we're going to right click on this health bar and say duplicate. And now this will be health bar underscore 102, and we want to change this to underscore 175. And let's just drag this X handle here. This is kind of our X value. You can see in the top right corner over here that it's just the X value that's changing. Alternatively, you can scroll down here and just simply change it here yourself, or you can change it over here. There are 3 different ways of doing this. If you want to make this super accurate, you can measure it and count the pixels and all that stuff, but for now we're just kind of wigging it. And we're going to repeat this process a few times. So we're going to duplicate this timeline, make it 50. We're going to roughly eyeball around 50 there, duplicate that, make this 25. Bring this down here and duplicate that and make this 0, health bar 0. And I've done that all 3 ways, as you can see here. Cool, so we're happy with that. We've got the heart pulse, we've got the health bar going down to 0. Next, we want to handle when this text should display. So we want to make a new timeline, and we're going to call this first timeline text off, because we want this text to not be appearing when the health bar has health. And so over here on the right hand side, you'll see this little blend tab with normal and 100. We want to make this is our opacity that we want to make 0. So text is off means the opacity should be 0. So you can see here now that our restart text and our UDI text have been set to 0. And once again, we're going to duplicate this and call this text on. And now we simply want to make this text up to 100. So we've got text off and text on. Okay, we are almost set to start adding the logic, but there's one more step I want to do, and we're going to go back to design mode. We need to figure out a way to be able to click on this entire frame. Like, we want the user to be able to click anywhere and for stuff to happen. And so we need to make a hitbox for that. So let's jump into design mode. We're going to make a rectangle. We're going to put this rectangle just over the whole artboard. And as you can see, we don't want this big gray box over the artboard, so we are going to remove its fill. And to remove its fill, we go down here to fills and strokes and simply click minus. Now the fill has deleted, but the box is still here, and this box will still be able to be clicked on even though it doesn't have a fill. So let's rename this hitbox by double clicking on that. And I like to just lock this. It means that we don't click on it by accident in the frame. We can still click on all the other stuff. and we won't click on this hitbox by accident. And now we are ready to start adding logic. And so to do that, we're going to go to our state machine, back to our animate mode in our state machine. I just like to keep the state machine at the top of this kind of menu here. And we're going to name this layer, this first layer of our state machine, we're going to name it heart pulse. You can already see that our heart pulse timeline is in here. And if it's not in here, simply just drag in the heart pulse timeline from here and make sure that it has a connection to entry. And you can see there, if we play the state machine, if we spacebar or push play, the heart will pulse immediately, which is something we don't want. We want this to only pulse when we click on the kind of screen. And so to give it that logic, we need to create some inputs and some listeners. And so the first input we want to create is kind of a click input. We're going to say, like, when we click, something should happen. And so we're going to make a trigger, and we're going to rename the trigger to click. In fact, we could even name it click trigger, just so that we know that we've made a trigger here. Now that we've set that up, we can go to our heart pulse layer on our state machine, and we're going to select this transition. We want to tell this transition that to only move when it's been clicked. So we call that giving it a condition, and we see here that this is conditions, and we're going to get a plus sign. While this is selected, click the conditions and click trigger. And so now what we see is that if we play this, it's not going to make the heart pulse because it's waiting for this input to be triggered. And if we click this trigger here, you can see that the heart is pulsing. But if we click this trigger again, it doesn't do anything because it doesn't have a way to go. It's got no way to go from here. So what I'm going to do is just add the exact same timeline back in here, heart pulse again. And we're going to connect these two by hovering just to the left or right on the outside of these boxes. And this is a little circle that appears, and you can drag that and connect that to this heart pulse. And this transition we also want to make just on the click trigger. So when it's listening for this click trigger, and so now we can, if we play the state machine, we can see if we click it pulses. If we click it again, it pulses. But if we click it again, it's got no way to go back. We can fix that by making a transition backwards from this side to this side. If you're only seeing one of these, it could be that your things are too close together. You can see that I can't see any transitions, so just make sure that these are pulled nicely apart from one another. And for this back condition, we want to make it the same trigger again. So now, regardless of where it is in the timeline, or in the state machine rather, we should always be able to click. And so trigger, 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 trigger. Cool. But we don't want to have to click on this tree. We want to be able to click on the stage, on the screen. And to do that, we're going to create a listener from this hitbox that we created. So with selecting this hitbox, we're going to click plus sign on the listener. And it's going to create a new listener, and it's looking or listening to this hitbox. And it's going to say when the pointer is down, it's going to then fire off the click trigger. And we could do it click as well, but click means that the mouse is pointed down and lifted up again. It's click down and up again. Sometimes it's better just to do it on click down so that if a user clicks and stays clicked, like something will happen. And so now we can test it out. So we can see if we click anywhere here, it starts to pulse, which is exactly what we want. So to repeat that step, maybe actually you could just go back, rewatch what I've done. It's better than repeating myself. The next thing we want to do is we want to make this health bar start to go down. So we're going to create a new layer in our state machine. Click this plus sign here. Make sure your state machine is selected. New layer, and we're going to call this health bar. Now we want to drag in all of our timelines, 100, 75, 50, 25, and 0. And we can make them all in a nice straight line and super neat. And once again, we want to make sure that it goes from entry to 100. We don't need a condition here because we want it to start at 100. We need it to start there. So it's fine that there's no condition here. But for the rest of these, we want conditions. So let's first connect them. And then what we want to do is select all of them. And we want to make a condition for all of them. And that condition, once again, is just the click trigger. So now, if we play the time machine, if we play the state machine, not the time machine, we can see if we click now, it goes down. But you'll see that the restart function is not working. And we still got this text, so we'll fix that soon. But you can start to see the logic working. And to make that look a little bit more juicier, we're going to select all of these transitions by holding Shift and selecting them. We're going to give them a duration maybe of 200 milliseconds. And I like to just make the interpolation. If you scroll down here, the interpolation is linear. And we can make that elastic, which gives it a little bit of bounce. So now if we play the state machine, you can see here that there's a little bit of bounce, just stopping and restarting the state machine every time. Cool. I hope you are with me. And so let's move on to the next step. All right. So what we want to do next now is create a new layer, and we're going to turn this text on and off. And so let's just call this text, and we're going to drag in the text off first. And we want this to be our entry point. We want to make sure that this is the first thing that happens. And so you can see if I the state machine now, the text is switching off, which is we only want to bring the text on when the player dies, or when the health bar gets to 0. And to do that, we're going to make a new condition, and this condition is going to be a Boolean. So we want to create a new input, a Boolean input, and we're going to call this input is dead. And with that input created, we can now make this transition, and we can add the condition is dead is true. So basically, when the health bar is dead, it switches the text on to say that you've died. So let's set out. Let's go down to 0, and then click the is dead function. And we see there that now it says you died, and then the text is on. But we need a way to trigger this automatically. We want this Boolean switch on when it gets to 0. And to do that, we need to create an event. And so to create an event, there's this little event button or stage control tools, and then event. And we're just going to click anywhere just to the left of this. It can be anywhere. It doesn't show up in the animation or anything like that, but I like to just keep it off to the side here. I'm going to call this event dead. And so this is going to fire off when the health bar reaches 0, and then we're gonna listen for this. And so to fire this event off, there are a few ways of doing it, but the first way is to select this health bar 0. And when it gets to this timeline, it's going to fire off that it's dead. And to do that, we see here that there's a little events tab down at the bottom. So if we click plus sign there, and it should be, we only have one event, and it should be there. And now if I play the state machine, you will see, watch for this little event when it gets to 0. Boom, it fired off. But nothing has happened because we haven't kind of connected up the wires yet. So let's do that. So to make this like event kind of trigger that, we need to listen for it. And so we're going to click on the artboard. Like that's the most top layer here, the actual artboard itself. And if we make a new listener, what it's going to do is it's going to look for things in this artboard, predominantly events. And you can see that it's found this event. So it's looking at the artboard called health bar. It's found an event, and we're going to set is dead to true when when this fires off. So when this fires off, it's going to set isDead to true, and it's only going to fire off when it hits down to 0. And so let's test this out. So we go to 0 and it fires off and it brings up our text, because this is, on condition that this is true. Now we have a working health bar that everything works, but we don't have any way to reset it. So the last thing we're going to do now is just configure the reset, and then we'll be done. Have a finished health bar. So I want to make sure that we can go back. We can switch the text on and we can go switch the text back off again. So I'm going to make a new transition from text on to text off. And this condition is simply going to be when isDead is false. So when we'll see here, we go down to 0. This isDead is set to true. And so simply if we switch this off, we'll see that the text switches off. We want to do the same for the health bar. And to configure that, we are just going to give ourselves a little bit more space. We're going to pull our 0 bar down here, and now we're going to go back up to 0. And for this, we are just going to make the same condition, isDead equals false, and we're just going to give it a little bit of a transition, duration transition, 50 milliseconds. And now we should see that if it goes down to 0, and if I click off this, boom, it goes back up to, and we can start again. But we really don't want to have to be clicking on this to start again. We want the user to be able to click anywhere on the screen and for it to restart. And that's pretty simple for us to do. All we need to do is look at this listener, this hitbox listener. Remember, this is this hitbox that covers everything. Currently, when the hitbox is clicked down, it fires the trigger. And every time we click down, we just want it to be turning isDead to false. That's it. And so we can just say, with this hitbox selected in the listener section here, click the plus sign, change the input, and set isDead to false. And so what we're doing here is we're listening to the hitbox. Every time the pointer or the mouse is clicked down, it's changing isDead to false. And so you can see that every time we click, it's changing isDead to false. And then when you died, this event fires off, and it brings up the text, and it turns this to true. And now if you click again, it will change it to false, because it's actually turning it to false every time you click. And that's how we make a fully functioning health bar that you can plug in anywhere you want. I will have all the project files in the description so you can follow along. Yeah, and it's been really great to explain this health bar tutorial to you. I hope that you followed it along well. Please, I would love to see your health bar version in the comments. So please share that with me. I'd love to see it. And as I said, yeah, you can check out the projects, the link in the description for the project files, and we'll see you at the next tutorial. Cheers, everyone.